Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our next session where we are talking about spreadsheets and how to turn them into month-end machines. This is our 2:00 session today on day two. We're joined by the wonderful Dave Sellick. If you've not seen Dave in a spreadsheet before, you are in for a treat. I have seen Dave absolutely manipulate the hell out of Google Sheets using automations and tools. And Jordan and Dave are about to unpack all of this for you right now. If this is somehow the first session you've been on for the Growth Club, welcome. I'm going to run through the housekeeping really quickly. All the sessions are being recorded, so you're going to be able to play this one back, share it with team members after the fact. That is all thanks to the team at Vinyl, who are a recording partner, which means that you also get access to all the transcripts from these sessions as well. There is one CPD point available for all the sessions, including this one right now, thanks to the team at AccrediWise. There is money up for grabs. If you have not done this yet, you can jump on LinkedIn, share it on social media, share your best tip that you've learned in the last 2 days. I'd love to hear what that is. Tag the firm on LinkedIn, use Growth Club as a hashtag. You go in the draw to win up to $500 in gift cards, which could be Uber Eats, could be Amazon. I might even let you pick the gift card if you win. How's that sound? But you can do that now. Huge thanks to all of our partners, namely our platinum partner here, which is Intuit QuickBooks. We couldn't do these events without their support. Huge thanks to all of our other partners that have been leading content sessions and getting involved in the program as well. They're doing amazing things for the accounting industry, and we think they're pretty cool. We think you should check them out and see what they are doing. But enough about that. More about this. Dave is an accountant based in the UK. He's the founder of a company called Sidgrove. I have interviewed Dave before talking about spreadsheets, Google Sheets, and all the wonderful automations that you can do. I won't steal any of the thunder. I'm going to just hand over to Jordan and Dave right now. They're going to hand that over. So Jordan, my friend, it's over to you. I'll let you guys take it away. Enjoy. Sit tight, and I'll see you to wrap the session.
Okay, welcome everybody to another session at the Growth Club Summit. Hope you've been having a great time at the event so far and attended some of the other sessions and taken a lot away from them. I'm joined today by a good friend and spreadsheet wizard, Dave Sellick. Dave's going to be running us through a session on how to turn spreadsheets into month-end machines. So we're going to be looking at all kinds of stuff. We're going to be looking at how to appify a spreadsheet, what that actually means, how you can do it in real life. Dave's going to be demoing some real examples of spreadsheets he's built to help with all kinds of things across reconciliations, payroll, and other things as well. And just giving you some really nice practical use cases about how you can use this technology to make a huge difference to how you deliver work within your firm. So to kick things off, Dave, do you mind just giving us a quick introduction to yourself?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. So, hey, I'm Dave. I run a small practice sort of in London kind of region, just south of London, UK. I've been an accountant since 2008. So I originally trained with PwC in audit, spent 4 years there, moved into industry, and kind of spent most of my career working in a head of finance type capacity. So that's kind of what I've taken into my practice. So the last 6 years, I've run my own practice, almost more like a portfolio head of finance than, I guess, perhaps the traditional kind of compliance-based practices that we think of. And part of that kind of journey with the practice has been also to look at, I guess, really building a model for myself, but also something now I talk about a lot within the industry, a model to create, I guess, what I perceive to be ideally the future of what an accounting practice looks like. So I guess we talk a lot about this concept of advisory and moving more into the industry mindset. That's something I talk about a lot, and using or leveraging technology basically to do that, to create the space to do that. Obviously, we're seeing this movement a lot more with technology like AI cropping up and being talked about, but the reality is there's been tons and tons of different technology available to us to be able to bridge that gap from compliance to advisory and create the space to do this. And obviously some of that I'm going to be talking about today. One of the particular tools that I've really sort of leaned into is the trusty spreadsheet. And like there's a lot of things that we can do with that tool that you may not be aware of. I wasn't aware of. And we'll talk about it a little bit now.
Cool. I mean, it's quite funny, isn't it, that the narrative over the last few years has always been, especially from vendors, that spreadsheets are the worst things imaginable and that all accounting firms should stop using spreadsheets immediately and use these amazing cloud-based apps to kind of do various parts of the workflow. But I know you believe very strongly in the fact that spreadsheets can be incredible tools when you understand how to build them out. So why don't we jump into that initially? And I know that you've got some stuff prepared to kind of walk through and share a bit more about your mindset around why Appified spreadsheets are, a great tool for firms to be using.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna share my screen. Obviously, I presume something is going to go wrong in this presentation because I'm sharing my screen and a bunch of different tools. But yeah, let me just share a few notes quickly just to intro you to what I'm about to talk about. So, where are we? Screen. Okay. Hopefully you can see that now.
Yep, all good.
Cool. All right. So I guess the first thing I want to say is just to preempt maybe your mindset when you see some of the things that I'm showing you. Like I'm not here to teach you how to do what I do or to say this is the way you should do things. Really what I want to do is just open your mind. Obviously there's one person that gets some value from this and is inspired by certain parts of it to do things differently or to approach things differently, then great. But it is really just to open your mind about the capabilities of the tools we already have available to us. And obviously, in the context of me just effectively just doing a very raw, open walkthrough of the tools I use and the exact way that I use them in the month end process in particular. I'm using demo data that I've curated. So I spent a lot of time doing that. So all the data here is demo data based on a made up company called Circle. So that's allowing me to show you a very kind of really honest as possible and real as possible scenario around my month end process. So I just want to talk a little bit about why essentially I am talking about spreadsheets today. I guess I'm someone who has the kind of image of someone who works with progressive technology. But the spreadsheet, as Jordan was alluding to, is often thought as a kind of almost like a dirty word in this sort of, progressive accounting world. And it was never my intention when I came from industry to start a practice and do what I was doing at scale to use spreadsheets to do reporting and to work with around month end. So yeah, like this sort of slide says, like I tried all the web apps, including the likes of Spotlight and Fathom and Futury and various others that I looked at in order to basically scale what I was doing for one company to many. I felt that, like many accountants, these were a really great way to go. Beautiful looking tools. And the reality is the reason why I went back to using spreadsheets for a lot of my reporting and month end is because I had a difficult experience with these tools. And that's kind of what this visual, I've talked about this a lot. I did a presentation purely on this kind of journey from web apps to what I've called the application of spreadsheets. And really it's around this concept here of wanting to have all of the great things that we know web apps have, the clean visuals, good connectivity, out of the box. They're not particularly technical to use, easy to scale, but they don't have the flexibility that spreadsheets have. And more I would find when I was working with clients with these web apps, I would find myself ultimately in a position where something would need to get done, usually urgently, and pretty much the response from me would be, I can't do it in this interface, and therefore, I'd end up really in this situation where all roads led back to me having to do something in a spreadsheet anyway, and that's really where I started to get curious about, well, what if I could try and do effectively this? So how could I, well, let me just move on actually to the application sheet. So I've just covered this off, which is to say that web apps don't do the things I wanted them to do. And so I went through this process that I've called, completely made up the name really, but it sort of fits quite well, the application of spreadsheets. So essentially sort of taking all those app-like sort of aspects I just talked about, beautiful, connected, intuitive, scalable, etc., and combining those features with the things that we love about spreadsheets, their infinite flexibility, universal usability, and really, to be honest, just that flexibility, not being slave to the roadmap, and combining the two together to have this, really nice flexible tool that works like an app. So that's what this diagram's effectively showing here. So yeah, I know there's a lot of information going on here, but effectively, the process I went through was to look at how can we create this perfect reality where we have the beautiful functionality of web apps, but we combine it with the flexibility of spreadsheets, the functionality, of a spreadsheet, to get this perfect tool, which is obviously the dream, but it was a difficult process, and it has basically been a lot of my existence over the last 6 years, amongst obviously running a practice, to build these tools. So I went all in on this pretty soon in my practice, and well, I'm glad I did. But yeah, it was a long process. Hence why I'm talking about it today. Hence why I talk about this a lot, because I think that yeah, it's a very, very effective way to run your month end. They're very, very powerful tools. I think people can get a lot of value from revisiting spreadsheets in the way that I have. And obviously, on the back of this 6 years of building these tools, I'm able to hopefully fast track your progress in building them too. So, what I'm going to do today is just like basically run through some of the ways, or as many as I can. Jordan's probably going to jump in where I'm sort of going over. I'll try and do a bit of a whistle stop tour of some of the actual tools I use in my month end, to show you not just theoretically why this is a good approach, but also to show you hopefully practically, pragmatically, why it's a good approach, and hopefully you can get some inspiration, whether it be from the tools I'm using, the way I'm using them, even just the design. If that's the only thing you get inspiration from, then great. But yeah, so let's get into it. As you can see here in the diagram, obviously a lot going on. What I've tried to do is put some icons to just represent the tools I use in the process, and I guess these slides will be available afterwards, so you can take a closer look at any of these slides afterwards. So the first thing I'm going to jump into, well, actually, we're going to jump into, well, I've said here payroll, but I think might be best to just jump into probably the more basic sort of functionality that I'm going to show you, which is pulling data down from a platform like Xero. So Xero is the only accounting software that I use, but it would be a similar workflow for QBO and other cloud technology, or small company cloud technology. And I'm basically going to show you the process by which I pull data down from Xero into, in this instance, a Google Sheet, and then I put it into Excel. And that is like that's a fundamental mechanism I use ultimately to pull data and report data, using spreadsheets to get the data from Xero into my spreadsheets. I'm then also going to show you through some of these other sort of reports, the process by which I push data back into Xero. So I think what I'll do, Jordan, is just come out of here and just jump into the bookkeeping tool that I use, just to demonstrate this process by which I pull data down from Xero using a tool called Geocom, which is effectively an API connector, but a sort of non-technical API connector, I guess, for Xero, and to pull data down into a spreadsheet. So I'm just going to...
Can I ask a quick question before we jump in, mate? If you're happy to share, what might be interesting context for the people listening is how many clients are you currently doing month end for on a monthly basis, and it's just yourself? Because I know that you're running this across quite a number of clients, and it saved you a substantial amount of time. And because of how you've set these spreadsheets up, you're actually able to deliver what is an incredibly personalized reporting service at some kind of scale relative to how other firms might be engaging with their clients for month end. So do you mind just giving us a bit of an overview of what that looks like?
Yeah, of course. So I run my practice by myself, which is, I guess, unusual. I've been running the practice for 6 years, and I work with around 60 clients. So quite a lot for one person. I will caveat that by saying that because I work in more of a sort of portfolio head of finance basis, I do work with teams within the clients I work with. So these people technically could be in my team. I've just chosen the model to sort of encourage clients to bring that resource internally. And that's probably a whole different other debate. But the reality is I'm putting out around 15 month-end packs every month, and you'll obviously see it in a bit, kind of what they look like. They're very comprehensive reports, including often some forecasting sort of integrated into that, occasionally with clients picking up modeling, etc. So yeah, a huge amount of work. And so that is the context, obviously, there is that I needed tools that would be unbelievably efficient to use and optimized to use to be able to deliver that level of output. Of course, most people would say that's crazy, don't do that. For me, I was pushing the boundaries of I've been trying to push the boundaries of what is possible. And obviously, I would have had to grow in a team had I not gone through the process of building some of the tools I'm about to show you now. So that's one thing to know. Another thing to note is that my practice is essentially built on, well, more and more on Slack. So this is just a sort of demo channel here that I've been playing around with different functionality in. But you can kind of see some of the sort of visuals and things that I throw in terms of types of documents and notifications and bits and pieces. But yeah, this is also another thing that we'll tap into a little bit today in a second, in terms of one of the ways I manage so many different clients on this kind of fluid basis in combination with these tools. There are many other things as well, like, obviously my face is quite small at the moment, but you can probably still see in the corner there, like my setup. So I'm not going to talk about that today, but the point really there is that there's a lot of things going on in my practice that mean I'm able to do what I do. It's also why I put the message at the beginning, like I'm not here to tell you to do it this way, because it could be quite overwhelming, potentially, for some people. If nothing else, hopefully it's just interesting to see another approach, and in this context, obviously, what is possible. Not necessarily we're not necessarily going to go into the details of exactly how these things are built, but just for you to see what's possible.
Cool. Let's jump into it, mate.
Okay, cool. So this is what I refer to as my bookkeeping sheet. So, a lot of you will be familiar with this. Ultimately, this is a tool that I use to get information from clients. So when I've done the bookkeeping in Xero, so actually let's just jump into my demo company here. So let's say I've gone through the process of reconciling everything that I can. Obviously, you can see here there are certain rules they're picking up and things are auto-reconciling. It's just the way I've set up the demo company, so it's easy to work with. But let's pretend we've got everything that or as far as we possibly can. I need information from the client. So at this point, what I will do, and also let's say that we're doing this for the month end of May. So I'm just firstly going to, again, I'm not going to talk too much about the functionality behind this. What's happening here when I hit, say, for example, that button, is I am activating a Google Apps script, which is opening up some additional tabs here. What I'm then doing is going to the Geocon add-on here, and I'm refreshing a template that I have set up to basically pull the unreconciled items from the Xero file I'm connected to. So I'm connected to the Circle file. What I would do once this is run, I'm just going to actually just jump in and show you exactly how that's set up. That might be helpful for you. So there we go. So it takes, whatever it is, 10 seconds to pull that data. Unfortunately, I guess this will look identical to this because I've recently run this data. But let me just refresh it. What will happen, you'll just see that will then populate that data again in here. Oh, no, there are some new items. And then what happens, so what you're seeing here again is another app script. It is a scalable process. I literally just copy and paste this Google Sheet onto new clients, and there's a couple of setup items, but ultimately it's a repeatable process every single time. It's just refreshing the interface here, so pushing down new checkboxes. It's got a formula here, which is actually looking up into OpenAI's API. And what it's doing is it's pulling a little description of what that particular service, that cost is. What it also does as well is it links to the supplier's website if it can find it. So you can see it's got quite nice little, some of these are just made up suppliers, to be honest, so it won't find them, but you'd expect probably Stripe to be picked up. There we go. So yeah, quite a nice just little experiment basically. I think it would probably work quite well, for example, if you're outsourcing and maybe the team don't know those suppliers. So that's been quite a nice thing to play with. Essentially at this point, I will then share it with the client. But let me just quickly jump into actually how this works with Geocon, just so you can see how that mechanism works. So let's just pretend we're doing a new one. I'm going to go to extensions, Geocon. And what I do, let's just fast track it a little bit. I've got some templates set up already. So you can basically configure the reports you run, then save it down as a template. You can see here I've got folders for different templates that I've created. So in this instance, it's under the bookkeeping folder. I've got one for last 12 months unreconciled items. I'm just going to click that one. What it's then going to do is it's going to basically pull from the setup. So the setup here has got a date range. This is defaulting to basically, I think it will be today's date, the end of the current month, basically. I can override that. So I think if I put something in, I can override it, but I never really need to do that. But essentially that's what it's doing. So it's dynamically kind of referencing this date range here. That's what this is doing here. So set up D6 to C6. And so when I run that, it's going to pull down the data based on kind of how the particular report that I chose, which was to pull the unreconciled items. So that's how the data comes in. You can see it's not in a particularly beautiful format. So I do some conditioning of the data here. This is something I'm going to cover off as part of a separate project that I'm sort of putting out into the accounting world. But for today's purpose, I just wanted to show you how easy it is essentially to run those templates and pull that data in. So yeah, once I've done everything that I want to do, let's say I want to filter this and say all I want to show the client is stuff that's before May. So I can also select that and hit this button. It will then filter that data just to show those items. So maybe if I'm just looking to get the month end for May over the line, I'm just going to share them those items. What I'm then going to do maybe is put some notes in and just say, it's just a deposit. It looks like a large amount. Once I've done that, I'll then hit this button and it basically sends those to the client. So it's going to notify me to send that a message has been sent. In the Slack group here, if I go to the bottom, I've just scrolled all the way through. There we go. This comes through. So this is what populates, and that's being generated through a make.com workflow with Slack. Again, I'm not going to go into the details of how that's been run, but just to show you the kind of thing that's possible. So this is then pulling in, it's notifying the channel, and then effectively they can click on this. It then tells them a little bit about kind of what I want them to do once they've finished, which is to click this box. So either they're sending through to or Data Molino or Dext or whatever your OCR is, they'll just click this button and say, I've sent that through. Or they might say, I've chased supplier, we'll send when done, when I have it. Okay, and at this point they'll go, that's done, and then they'll let me know. So I basically told them to click this checkbox here. Again, they'll get some feedback and it will then notify me in here. So that's the bookkeeping workflow. That is a really fundamental tool that I use like for every single client. And I've been sort of working on optimizing it over the last sort of 6 years or so, ridiculously. So I guess...
Can I play devil's advocate on that for a second?
Yeah, go on.
So I guess the current workflow for firms might be that they go into Xero, they export the unreconciled transactions report, attach it to an email and send it to the client, which they would then go through and review and mark in what they have available, what they've submitted to the OCR and what they're still chasing. How much of a difference is this version making where you've got some of these automations built in versus that, I guess, typical manual approach?
Yeah, well, my whole, like one of my big obsessions has been to try and reduce the friction as much as possible for clients. So, I mean, 100% like it's a little bit different for me potentially because a lot of my clients do already work in the Google Workspace. I'd say the majority of them already do. So they're familiar with this. So there's familiarity when I send them a Google Sheet through. What it also does is just allow a really collaborative approach because I can be in this, they can be in this. I have a full saved history of all the changes that have happened in here. Not that I necessarily need it in this instance, but if a client was to say, give a certain feedback or, say they've sent something through and maybe hypothetically there was some disagreement on that, then you have that data already saved down. If you've got the, subscribed version of Google Sheets. So I'm not concerned about the fact that I'm refreshing this and I'm losing historic data. It's a more beautiful process as well. I mean, obviously, I can't really, maybe you can, but link emails in the same way to the workflow I have in Slack. So again, I'm slightly different because I've really started to sort of build the way I work with clients all around Slack and and it's a whole different, obviously, we've done, talks about Slack, but I could probably do another one in the near future about how I'm using it and effectively like replicating what clients would normally have in a portal into and almost like a practice management system into Slack and allowing that to be there and sort of the entirety really of the world that they need to go into in order to find everything finance to contact me. to find links to key documents, to find what to-dos I need to do, etc. So I think it's just more of a fluid process. The other thing that we can do in here, obviously, we can link people, so they can actually tag me. I can tag members of the team. I can bring other team members into here. So whoever I want to bring in, I can basically tag them in here. I've got made up people in this company, so I can't. But that side of it is also nice. And as you saw, like the ability to basically link this directly to Xero means that it's just a one button, sort of a one click refresh. You could even set it to auto refresh. So yeah, it's just, is it different? No, in theory not, but it's just reducing those friction points, making this easier to run, making it more beautiful, and ultimately for me, tying into a tool that I run my entire practice from.
Cool. All right. What are we looking at next?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Let's go. So no. We need to move through this. So okay. So let's have a very quick look at how I run payroll. So I know this will be different internationally. So let's not touch on this for too long. Okay. So this is the tool that I use. So yeah, as I said, I use a tool called PayCircle in the UK to run payroll. What I do with clients is basically pull down data from that payroll software using a tool called API Connector. So a really good one to check out if you're interested in looking at how you can connect the data of any of the platforms you use with basically a spreadsheet. So Geocon is a tool that I use specifically with Xero, and it's built in a really intuitive way to pull Xero data down. But this API Connector tool made by Mix Analytics allows me essentially to pull data from any open API. It's a little bit more technical. So it's a low code type tool. But yeah, this is effectively the setup for the APIs I've connected. And in this particular sheet, I'm bringing in a bunch of the payroll data such that when I hit refresh here, it will essentially pull in the current month payroll, prior month, the prior month, some other bits and pieces as well. And it essentially just allows me to create, I guess, my go-to tool, which is this sort of variance analysis tool, month on month. You can see there are no variances on payroll. This is kind of like the fundamental tool I use with clients to review payroll month on month. And once I've sort of had a look at it, I'll use this little button in here to run another workflow, which should then send like a notification into the Slack channel. So again, a nice little sort of integration of automations into Slack just to notify clients when I'm ready for them ultimately to review the payroll. I also then push data. So this is, I guess, going back to the diagram in terms of pushing data. This is that part of it. So I then basically pull the data into a journal. And this gives me a bit more flexibility. I won't necessarily go into the full detail, but I know that a lot of payroll software will automatically push into Xero. This just gives me a little bit more flexibility. But yeah, I'm basically pushing journals into Xero. And I'm just going to show you how that fundamental mechanism works. So the first thing that I would do is create a bunch of placeholder journals to push in, that I'm going to ultimately update with data. So Geocon has a functionality here, upload accounting data to the accounting file you're in. And I effectively, if I just go into edit templates, I've set a template up here to take from these headers, which are like the sort of default journal headers for a Xero journal upload. Oh, there are no templates currently set up for this page, apparently. There should be. Okay. Well, let's set one up then. So let's go to my templates. Hopefully this will work. Something's going to go wrong, I guess, at some point, but or something else is going to go wrong. So journal uploads, let's go to insert. So I've set up a journal basically, or a template to insert a bunch of placeholder journals. And then it's basically mapping all the different headers. Hopefully if I execute and save, this should then create a whole bunch of placeholder journals for me. There we go. So you can see it's now created all these new journals. So if I click into one of these, you'll see it'll give me a draft journal in Circle with obviously the data I put in there, which I'm just using in and out, 1p on the suspense account. So it doesn't hit the ledger. It's a draft journal. Again, it's just a placeholder. That then feeds through into this page where I then take those and I hard code them into here. So I'm just going to reverse that because I don't want to use those new journals. But yeah, that's what I would do. Once I've hard coded them into here, in this instance, I've got sort of whatever, 3 years of data that affect, or 3 years of journals that I can then use as I change this date here. It's then going to pull in that ID and it's going to push those figures into that journal. So I'll just speed this up and show you obviously what that looks like. It's just going to basically replicate what's in here. And it's as simple as, so if I just change it to, let's do May again. So if I just change this to May and then go edit templates on the page, and then I just basically just hit a button. You can you can set this to auto schedule, but if I hit this button, you'll see if I just delete those so you can see how fast it is. Pretty quick. And that's posted. Cool. So that is the fundamentals of posting data into Xero. Let's sort of jump through some of the other ways in which I'm using spreadsheets to post.
Just quickly on that one, mate. How much time would you say that's saving you each month when you're running payroll for clients? If you compare it to like how firms might be currently doing.
Yeah, for me, like a lot. But for me, it's a lot of time, just because I know that there are firms that are okay, have a payroll software that has a good integration into Xero or whatever tool you're using. For me, I didn't. I didn't find PayCircle was really posting payroll in the way I needed. So I was having to do it basically manually every single month. So, that was a massive time saving for me to be able to just automate that and sort of map payroll in a flexible way. Also on the payroll. Yeah.
When you say post it the way you want to, you're talking about breaking it down by, for example, different departments and stuff.
Not necessarily. I'll show you that in a second. But it's just more. I mean, I don't want to go necessarily too much into specifics of UK payroll in terms of how I split it out. But there might just be kind of random items that, like reimbursements and staff loan repayments, and in the UK we have something called tax allowance, basically where a certain amount of money gets deducted off the liability for a period of time, and there's certain nuance, basically, I won't go into detail, there's certain nuance that wasn't working right in the automated payroll journal. So it just gave me the opportunity to be a bit more flexible with how I posted it. So it may not be something that all firms need to do. But again, this is just one use case of how I'm using it, obviously, alongside many other ways I post using spreadsheets into Xero. And I guess probably the sort of most obvious one to look at after that is very quickly is the payroll reallocation one. So that's a very simple journal. This journal takes the payroll data, it sort of feeds through from that sheet using basically the import range functionality. So payroll raw here, it will actually pull through from that somewhere. It will actually pull that data through somewhere. There's an import range somewhere. There we go. From that spreadsheet, and then effectively I populate this sheet, and this sheet then combines with a mapping that this is where the client would come in. Effectively, would map the percentage each employee is allocated to different departments, and then it creates this summary sheet at the front that then informs the journal. So yeah, this is a massive time saver. So again, it's a complicated looking sheet. I'm not here to teach you how to set up these sheets necessarily, but it's just to give you sort of a bit of an idea of the scale to which you can optimize things if you have these things set up. I'm literally, effectively changing the date. In this instance, I'm actually posting Jan to May, which means that if I change the mapping here, everything will update. So the whole of the current year will update, basically. Otherwise, I could just say, let's just set it for May, and that's just going to look at basically the May journal here. And it's going to take the payroll and it's going to split it out into all of the different departments. And effectively, that is what this journal here is. So that looks something like this. So a pretty beefy journal, and it takes a long time for people to do normally. So yeah, that's one example of where there is huge time savings. It's something that took me a long time to do before. Let me just show you similar kind of process on direct costs. So similar process here, where effectively I'm pulling data that I've already pulled down for the management reporting into sort of various different sort of tabs here. So let's say I wanted to reallocate for whatever reason, some of the branding costs. Apparently there are no items for branding, so that's not a good one to pick. PR maybe? Yeah, cool. All right, so I can use this drop down here to select a particular account code, and then effectively on the front sheet, I'm linking. Just take it back to where it needed to be. On the front sheet, I'm basically referencing that, and I'm reallocating basically a percentage of those amounts to direct cost, essentially. To familiarise myself with exactly where I specify what percentage that would be, but yeah, down here I think I've done that. Intercom, there we go. Yeah, so we picked particular suppliers from within those tabs basically, and selected what percentage I want to move into direct cost. So similar kind of concept. Again, that's informing these journals that are getting posted, and again, these are. If I was to just rerun this for, say, May, let's just pick May. And then I'm just going to rerun that journal. Let's take out the ID so you can see it obviously posting in. It's a pretty quick process. You can actually update a huge amount of journal or lines very, very quickly using this way of working as well. Obviously the one time it's going to take a while to.
And this is using Geocon again.
Yeah, exactly. So this is exactly the same methodology. So as I showed before, obviously classic that it would be slow the time that I show it. But yeah, that's why I obviously took you through the process of creating the journals and then effectively updating values. So yeah, I actually don't think I showed this the creation of this template, but effectively this particular template. So the first part is what I showed you, creating the placeholders. The second part, this interface, is actually taking those IDs and then basically just updating the values into those placeholder journals by using the ID as the sort of reference for Xero to know where to update that data. So it's something I will break down in a lot more detail as part of my sort of upcoming projects circle. So if you're interested in the specifics around how I built these things, then just keep an eye on my LinkedIn. But yeah, ultimately it's click to update, that's it, done, and that updates the journal. So then I've got a little link here which basically just takes me to the page that shows me the items that have values in them that haven't been posted yet, basically. So you can see a prepayments and accruals one there. So
Nice.
I think probably the final one, do you want to just move on?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm conscious that we've only got about five or so minutes left, and there's a lot that you can show us yet. And I actually had a couple of questions for you just based on some of the things that we've already ran through, almost to help anybody that's listening figure out where they can get started with this stuff. So I guess my first question is, how easy is it, in your opinion, for somebody to get started doing something similar to what you've done? I know obviously what you've got here is quite advanced. It's something that's been a labour of love for the last 6 years, and you've invested a lot of man hours into it. For the general listener that's maybe not doing this right now, what does success potentially look like for them within three months?
Well, it's obviously taken me a long time to. I mean, I would say just pick parts of. I think this is a whistle stop tour of all the different assets. I haven't this isn't effectively a front to end workshop. But if I was doing a workshop and telling you where to start, I would be saying just look at the fundamentals. So going back to the diagram, looking at basically picking out an example of maybe an instance where you could benefit from pulling data down automatically at a click of a button, or even setting up a schedule into a Google Sheet and potentially into an Excel. Again, I might just quickly show you how to do that as well. But or finding a scenario where you want to be able to push data from a Google Sheet or a spreadsheet into the accounting software, and just then going from there and playing with the functionality from there. So it is that simple. Just you're pulling data down, you're pushing it up. So just find scenarios where you're looking for that workflow, and that in itself, just that one thing of just connecting the data and automating the pull and push of data is going to save you a huge amount of time. And obviously from there, I think that opens up the curiosity around, well, actually, now I can get quite creative with this mechanism in terms of really building a lot of functionality in here, in the way I inform the figures that are sent in, or what I do with the data that I'm putting down. across multiple different tools. And then at that point, obviously, I'm going to be sharing some of these tools and have done actually in various groups to various people. So feel free to reach out to me if I haven't done it publicly yet. Happy to share pretty much everything you've seen here. If you want to have a look at some of the formatting, some of the structure for inspiration. But yeah, the best place to start is the most basic. Start, looking at how you can automate the data pull down using a tool like Geocon. There are others in the market. I recommend it because I think it's the best tool, whether you're using Excel or Google Sheets. Yeah, that's kind of what I would suggest in terms of starting point.
Okay.
And then what I'm showing you here, by the way, is just an accruals and prepayments tool that I built. So a similar kind of concept where I'm informing a bunch of different things going on in here, but informing ultimately a final journal that's basically creating a closed system around accruals and prepayments effectively. Just what came off it, didn't I just close that window? And then ultimately this ends up in a situation where I pull data into an Excel. So I don't report in Google Sheets. I then connect the data from those different, from the Google Sheet data that I pull down. So in the back end of here, you've got a bunch of different Google Sheets where I'm pulling data down in the same way as I showed you with the bookkeeping tool into various different tabs. These are then connected into the Excel. So if I was to show you very quickly how that works in an Excel, so let's say I want to pull down one of those sheets into my Excel, I'm going to grab the web address. You need to set it so that anyone with a link can view the data. Then I'm going to go to data, get data, and other sources from web. Paste it in. What you then need to do, really importantly, and I don't do it like this every time. I have it sort of set up in a slightly different way, where I just put the web address into a cell and it picks this up and it does it automatically. But if you're doing it like this for the first time, you need to change this from edit to export. And you need to change the USP to format equals XLSX. And then it will import, hopefully. So there you go. Now you can see the Google Sheet. So let's just say we want to pull in the P&L. You could either go into transform it. So the transform will take you into a tool called Power Query. Very powerful tool. If you haven't used it, check it out, where you can start to basically redefine certain elements of this data. We could filter that and take the nulls out, or whatever we want to do. At that point, you can then load it in. So then it's just going to load in. And what's going to happen now is you've basically now got a live feed of the data from your Google Sheet into an Excel. So when people say you can't connect, or there's no really strong connector for Xero to Excel, Geocon, or rather they might say Geocon is a G Sheet connector. It's not strictly speaking correct. I'm updating literally hundreds of reports every single month from Geocon into packs that look like this. So what happens is I effectively have a bunch of these different queries I just showed you. So these are all just basically all those different reports that I've transformed. I can then choose what I want to update. So let's say I want to update all of them. I hit this button. It then refreshes all of those basically Google Sheet reports. It takes a few seconds to do that. So it's really quick in Power Query. Obviously, the initial run of the data from Geocon is, half a minute or so. And then it's sort of, some of these are a bit bigger. Some of the data is a bit bigger. But effectively, when that is done, which it is now, all of the data in here now will show the May figures. And so all of the things you see here, every single report is being created from Xero data, from break-even analysis, sales analysis, overheads analysis, spend by supplier, break-even, all that stuff, waterfalls. This is all auto-generated, AP, accounts receivable, debtor days, creditor days, and then a sort of projection based on figures. And I've got a little bit of sort of, as we refer to, like application in here in terms of functionality that you can use to dice the data in different ways that you might want to share with the client slightly differently. And some other little features that are quite nice, like bringing in commentary. So I can hit a button and I can bring in the commentary from that pack, all this kind of stuff. And then what I do with this data, I guess final thing, I know we're sort of the end of the session, but I then use the data from that I pull down via that via the process that I'm using for the management accounts to actually push into a basically a forecast report. So this report here is actually pulling from the data from the other spreadsheets I use to basically inform the management account. So it's pulling in the data for the period in here, and it's using that data to basically push through assumptions into a forecasting tool, a very quick sort of, runway analysis tool that I use with most of my clients. So I guess I'll probably leave it there, Jordan.
Nice. Yeah, we're pretty much coming to time on this session. That's been pretty helpful to get a whistle-stop tour of all of those things. And like you said, this isn't the session to teach people the exact how-to behind how the whole thing works, but hopefully it's given them some inspiration, some ideas about what is actually possible in spreadsheets versus the kind of narrative in the market, which tends to be that spreadsheets are the bane of evil and that all firms should drop them immediately and go to these cloud-based apps. In terms of any follow-up questions, or if people they want to learn more about how you're building this stuff, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, keep an eye on my LinkedIn. Basically, drop me a direct message on LinkedIn. In the short term, I am going to be opening up a community soon where we can have a much more open forum about these kind of tools. There's a lot of stuff I didn't show you in there, like saving down to PDF and how I share it with the clients and how I make the tools collaborative. And, ultimately I want to do a lot more kind of like training around these areas and provide a lot more detail around kind of what I'm doing with these tools so that people can actually start to take aspects of what I'm doing and, build it into their own workflow and ultimately really fast track their ability to start using tools like this. But yeah, keep an eye on my LinkedIn and my community that I'm launching, Circle. And if you're really curious about what I've showed you, want to do any of that kind of stuff, maybe interested in how I'm integrating with Slack and that as well, then just drop me a direct message on LinkedIn is the best place to contact me.
Sounds good. All right, we're going to leave it there. Thanks to everyone that's joined us for the session today. Hopefully you've been inspired and have a few ideas about how you might be able to use some of this stuff going forwards. And we hope to see you in another session soon.
That was awesome. I expect a few brains blown only because I know like it's phenomenal the kind of stuff you do with that, Dave. So thanks for sharing everything and going through it. If you enjoyed this session, just jump in the chat and let me know and just say if you found that helpful, if you got some good things out of that. But otherwise, we're going to wrap that session. Thank you guys for going through everything just now. We are moving all on in. We're hitting the afternoon. We're nearly finished the Growth Club. This is pretty much at the end of day 2 at this stage. We are about to step into our 3 p.m. session. And one of those sessions is about marketing. That's with Amanda C. Watts. I've done the pre-game session with Amanda and that will be great. She talks a lot about building the brand that you want that attracts the clients that you want. Again, I've seen the content. I am a watch guy. If you like watches, she talks a lot about a particular brand that is doing a good job of this. The other session that we're running into to end our Growth Club is with Rob Stone from AppVentry, talking about how to turn App Advisory into a profit center in your business. He's actually going to demonstrate how AppVentry, their product, scans your tech stack, your client's tech stack, and gives you really key insights into how they're using those tools, and then giving you opportunities to actually turn that into a conversation with your client. We're heading into our last sessions of the day. I hope you enjoyed this one. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for joining here, and you're going to see me again in like 10 minutes or so. We'll catch you later. Thanks, guys. Chat soon. Bye-bye.